Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at Special Booster 2.5, and this set offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be Aquatics, with a heavier focus on Seadramon. So Aquatics does have a lot of variety and depth to it as one of Blue's more supported archetypes, but thanks to Giga Seadramon, we do have a new way to be able to focus the Aquatic package around different level 6s. And I think that Giga Seadramon is a really strong level 6 with a lot of different abilities for us to take advantage of, being this sort of aggro control style deck. But at the end of the day, he's still an aquatic-based card, and as such, the key mechanic behind all aquatic-based decks is going to be playing with your own inheritable sources to be able to spit Digimon out of your inheritables and be able to suck them back in for not only just customizing your inheritables for various different situations based on the inheritables that you can or want to run, but to be able to activate on-play abilities to be able to get even more mileage out of your Digimon than your average Digimon deck. The biggest weakness of the deck, however, is the fact that because the deck seems to be wanting us to rely on attacking with our earlier stage Digimon, that can be kind of problematic because aces exist, and if we don't have the correct chain of effects, then aces really can just cause a huge problem for us. Then when it comes to just some other miscellaneous factors that's holding the deck back, it doesn't really have any protection at all, so if you're unable to win the game fast enough, you could just get blown out pretty easily with some really strong removal. So those few things is what I think keep this deck back from being truly hyper competitive, but I do think this is a really strong and powerful casual deck that does have some competitive application and possibility thanks to how deep the aquatic well goes. But enough of me yapping about what the deck does, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what cards we're using. Starting off with the Digitamers, I'm going to be running only 4 copies of the best egg for the majority of aquatic decks, and that's going to be the BT7 version of Bukamon. So as I kind of already mentioned before, Aquatics wants to spit Digimon out of their inheritable sources, and well, Bukamon is rewarding us for doing so with some extra memory, which helps with the deck's overall tempo and efficiency. Next, on to the level 3s. This is a slot or level that you could kind of just customize in whatever way you feel like you want to, just because there are a lot of really good generic level 3 Digimon for us to utilize. So this is one of, if not the most customizable level for the deck, and the only mainstead card really seems to be the 4 copies of Sengomon, because it is, well, an aquatic traded Digimon, while also being the deck's dedicated searching tool or digging tool, because it allows us to look for our other aqua or sea animal traded cards, as well as our liberator traded cards too. On top of the fact that the end of attack inheritable ability is really nice at gaining us some extra memory to make the deck as efficient as possible. Then the extra rookies that I'm choosing to run, again, they could kind of just be whatever you feel like you want to use because there are just some good solid tools. I'm just choosing to use 4 copies of the BT19 Betamon for its jamming inheritable, while also having a pretty good on-play ability when we spit this card out, where if it was played by an effect, then your opponent's Digimon can't attack until the end of their turn, really shutting down some of their aggressive potential. Then the last rookie I'm going to be running is 2 copies of the Vmon from EX1. So this is kind of taking a note from Sengomon on allowing us to be a little bit more tempo efficient when we're unsuspending our cards, which we do have plenty of different ways to be able to unsuspend our Digimon. Then when it comes to the level 4s, this is where, again, you kind of still have a decent amount of flexibility based on the direction you're going to be going, but because I am more in a Seadramon focus build, that's the majority of the level 4s I'm going to be running. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of Seadramon X Antibody as the mainstead, and then the others you kind of do have flexibility between. But Seadramon X Antibody is really powerful because it does have an on-play and when digivolving ability to return one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon to the bottom of their deck. Then, if Seadramon or X Antibodies in this Digimon's Digivolution source, one of your opponent's Tamers can't suspend until the end of their turn, so it's removing possibly a floodgate while also stun-locking their Tamer, allowing us to have a lot of additional control for no real downside on utilizing this card. Then it has an inheritable ability that helps with the overall consistency of the deck, where if we have 7 or fewer cards in our hand, then we get to draw 1 when our higher stages are going to be attacking. Then, when it comes to the base Seadramon, you could run the promo if you really wanted to. The promo's probably the stronger card, but I do think that there is a lot of value in the EX8 iteration of Seadramon, just because this actually has the inheritable ability of jamming, which we really need if we're being aggressive with our lower level Digimon, while also having a nice when attacking ability where we get to gain a memory, which again helps with our overall tempo and efficiency. Then, when it comes to the additional supporting level 4, I'm just going to be running 2 copies of Shellmon from BT19, because this card also is going to be our way we're going to be setting up our main Tamer for free, which is always pretty good, while having that same inheritable ability as Sangomon, so we could be more efficient with our memory usage. Then, when it comes to the level 5s, I feel like this is a little bit more hard-lined because while there are other really good level 5 Digimon for us to run, this is just the easiest and simplest lineup for us to use, being 4 copies of the brand new Mega Seadramon X Antibody. So this card has an on-play and when digivolving ability that's really similar to the Seadramons, where we get to return one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to the bottom of their deck. Then, if Mega Seadramon or X Antibodies in this Digimon's Digivolution source, one of your opponent's Digimon can't suspend until the end of their turn, stun-locking their Digimon, while Seadramon is stun-locking their Tamer. So that really is going to try to limit the usage of the opponent's cards and aggressive or defensive capabilities, while this card also has the inheritable ability where the attack target can't be changed, so it again is trying to limit the opponent's overall defensive options as well. Then, the main Mega Seadramon that I'm choosing to run is going to be the 4 copies of EX8, because this card also has a nice on-play and when digivolving ability where we get to unsuspend one of our Digimon. So the idea, because of this ability, is we're going to try swinging with our level 4, so that way we could digivolve and unsuspend our Digimon, so we could potentially swing with our level 5, because our level 5 has a nice when attacking ability, where if we have 1 or more memory, then one of the opponent's Digimon can't suspend until the end of their turn, again, having alternative ways to be able to try to stun-lock their Digimon, keeping them from being as useful as possible. Then its inheritable ability is also still pretty nice, where we get to place one of our other Digimon on our field to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source to unsuspend this Digimon, allowing our higher stage Digimon to multi-attack. And then when it comes to the level 6s, again, similarly to the level 5s, we don't really have that many options if you're going to be trying to go into a more Seadramon focused build, which is what Giga Seadramon really wants from us. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of Giga Seadramon as the main level 6 Digimon. Yes, it does have a high Digivolution cost, but we could also Digivolve on top of our Metal Seadramons, giving us some extra flexibility, and that's kind of why the memory gain is so important, is so that way we could actually have enough memory to use this card efficiently. So this Digimon natively has a Security Attack +1, Reboot, and Blocker. So those are 3 very strong keywords for being aggressive and defensive. Then he has a nice when digivolving and when attacking ability. If Metal Seadramon or X Antibodies in its Digivolution source, we get to play out a level 5 or lower Digimon for free. So this combos really nicely with well, basically every inheritable that we're going to be playing with, but more specifically the EX8 level 5, so that way we could use that on play ability to unsuspend and get an extra attack. And because Giga Seadramon already has a security attack +1, that means we could very easily clear out 4 security in a single turn, if not more, depending on how you build your deck and the combos that you're able to line up. Then he has a nice All Turns ability where when any of your Digimon are played from the Digivolution source, we get a D-Digivolve 2 on the opponent's Digimon, so that way we have even more added control to further disrupt what the opponent's game plan could be. Then the Metal Seadramon of choice is going to be the 3 copies of Metal Seadramon Ace that I'm going to use, because this is, well, an Ace Digimon, so it comes with that hand counter Blast Digivolution effect to further disrupt the opponent. And this Metal Seadramon is actually a really powerful Ace Digimon because its on play and when Digivolving ability allows us to D-Digivolve 1 on one of the opponent's Digimon, but it also then has a good hard removal ability attached to it, where we get to return one of their Digimon with a play cost of 7 or lower to the bottom of their deck. So it's just a very strong ability overall, while it has an All Turns ability where if we have 1 or more memory, none of the opponent's Digimon can suspend. So again, it just really limits the options that the opponent has to be able to try to fight against us. Then when it comes to the level 7s, this is another highly flexible level, and you can just kind of run whatever level 7 you feel like you want to that fits within the confines of the deck. So I'm electing to use 1 copy of the brand new Omnimon X Antibody because this card is actually kind of insane. He natively has Raid, Piercing, and Blocker, so those are just all really strong keywords to go into the keyword soup. Then he has a nice on-play and when Digivolving ability, acting as a really strong board wipe to remove basically all of the opponent's Digimon, barring that they actually can be removed. But we're ultimately trying to actually use this card to close out the game with, because his last ability that triggers at the end of our turn essentially is the new Blitz Omni effect, where we could do give one of our Digimon Rush, and then we could do attack it even without suspending, making it a very strong card overall to use for any deck that could use him. And then when it comes to the Tamers, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Yao. So it already kind of makes sense to run this card because we're already running a little bit into the Liberator support. So we could play her for free, and she's going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing or setting Tamer, making sure that we're going to always start with at least 3 memory. And this also is going to be a really powerful card to synergize with how Giga Seadramon works, because when one of our Digimon with Aqua or Sea Animal in their traits attacks, we get to suspend this Tamer to place a level 5 or lower Digimon card with Aqua or Sea Animal in its traits from our hand to the bottom of its Digivolution source. So this way we could add new inheritable sources to our Digimon to make them even more powerful than ever before. And the only other Tamer that I'm going to be running is going to be 3 copies of Cool Boy from BT9, because this is just one of the best generic X Antibody support cards, because it's going to be a generic searching tool for X Antibody traded Digimon and options, as well as being able to gain some extra memory and draw an extra card when we're going to be Digivolving our Digimon into a same level Digimon that has X Antibody in its traits. So basically, when we go from a base form to an X Antibody form, we're going to be gaining tempo and resources, which is absolutely insane for how cheap this card is to play. Then when it comes to the options, speaking of the X Antibody options, I'm going to be running 3 copies of X Antibody. It really doesn't matter which X Antibody you're going to be running. I kind of am favoring the base over the protoform, but they both have their own sets of pros and cons for how this deck works. So I like using 2 copies of the base X Antibody because its security ability is nice for anti-tempoing. It's free to put underneath our Digimon at any given moment. It also protects itself from being removed as an inheritable. And on top of that, it allows us, as an inheritable ability that's not limited to once per turn, to be able to Digivolve into an X Antibody traded Digimon. Then I'm still going to be running 1 copy of Protoform because it's still a pretty useful card, allowing us to Digivolve into an X Antibody traded Digimon for a reduced Digivolution cost of 1, which is pretty nice to have, so that way if we need the extra tempo, this card could help provide it, while also having a nice inheritable ability that, even though it's not protection, it's still allowing us to have some kind of a comeback where it's going to be allowing us to take one of our Digimon from the Digimon's Digivolution sources and put that card into our hand, and then put this card on the top of our security, so that way we could use this card over and over again if the opponent doesn't actually have a way to remove this card from our security, as long as they're removing our Digimon. Then when it comes to the rest of the options, I'm going to be really boring and just running more consistency and tempo tools in the form of 2 copies of Blue Memory Boost and 3 copies of Mental Training. So they both just let us look for cards off the top, and they both just help us make our plays a little bit more efficiently when we're using their delayed ability. And this is just my interpretation of the deck, and I do think that there is a lot of power and potential in this build more specifically to at least be able to pseudo OTK the opponent. So the base playline that we're going over, just to kind of talk about it really quickly, because I do think that is important to how this deck is built, is we're going to obviously want to start with our EX8 Seadramon. So the EX8 Seadramon, if you don't have jamming underneath it, then you're going to want X Antibody to be there, and you're going to want to subsidize that with Seadramon X, so that way we could attack with Seadramon, gain them 1 memory from his ability, use the X Antibody to Digivolve into Seadramon to be able to have access at that jamming inheritable to make attacking with our level 4 pretty safe on top of Seadramon, obviously being able to use his abilities to his fullest potential. And that's kind of really cool because it allows us to already start gaining tempo and dealing damage. So if the opponent's at 5 security, now they're at 4. This is where we could Digivolve into Mega Seadramon, and we either gained the memory off of Sangomon or Vmon if we had a tempo ability underneath our Digimon because we didn't have jamming, or if you already had jamming, then you don't necessarily need the X Antibody play, and we're still gaining tempo because of the Seadramon. But regardless, Mega Seadramon allows us to unsuspend our Digimon, so that way we can make a follow-up attack with. And that's kind of where the jamming on Seadramon is really nice, so that way we could then swing again with our Mega Seadramon. So Mega Seadramon, if we had X Antibody, obviously we could Digivolve into Mega Seadramon X, or we could just Digivolve without really attacking, but then we lose his when attacking effect. But regardless, we're going to want to make another attack, so that way we could then Digivolve into Giga Seadramon, and then Giga Seadramon allows us to split out the Mega Seadramon that we already have in our sources with his ability, so that way we could use Mega Seadramon to make an unsuspend on Giga Seadramon, which Giga Seadramon being unsuspended allows us to be able to get 2 checks, so without the Tamer, that's already going to be 1 check off of Seadramon, 1 check off of Mega Seadramon, or if we used X Antibody to Digivolve into Giga Seadramon, then that's 2 checks with Giga Seadramon, and he's unsuspended, ready to attack again. So you could already kind of see just from this base lineup on how the cards are flowing and functioning that we could deal a lot of damage pretty quickly and try to be as tempo efficient about it as we possibly can. Because we do have ability extenders like Cool Boy to be able to gain us even more memory if we're Digivolving our normal Digimon into the X form. Or we have Yao, which is really good in combination with more copies of Seadramon, because if we used Giga Seadramon to split out the Mega, then the Mega unsuspends, and we also get to then use Yao to place a new Mega underneath, so that way we could still make a follow-up attack, eat the Mega Seadramon that we split out, and then get an additional attack again off of that. So you could just see even more combo potential based on how everything is flowing and functioning. So I do think that this deck, because of this, has a pretty decent amount of potential. It's just further optimization and customization to be able to get the deck to be even more powerful than the base I laid out here. And it's not like there's not other useful cards, because as I already mentioned before, the Aquatic pool goes pretty deep in terms of the different levels of support that we could provide and the different ways that we could approach building the deck, based on what you have access to, what you want to play, and what your expected meta you're going to be playing against. It incentivizes you from wanting to use to try to best handle that specific meta. And it's not like this deck is going to be exactly dead in the water. I don't know how often Seadramon is going to be getting support, but Aquatic as a trait looks like it's getting even more support in BT21 that we could look forward to. So that's all I really have for this deck profile. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts about it down in the comments below, and while you're down there, you might as well leave a like and subscribe if you found this video to be helpful and informative, and don't forget to smash that notification bell so you could stay up to date when I go live or upload next. And with that, I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and to see you all in the next one. Later.